can't express to you how awesome this is right here. I have with me James Patrick. He is an award winning photographer with over 500 covers, a best selling author, an entrepreneur coach, a podcast host, and a public speaker. And he is the founder of Get Published Live, which is an annual conference that helps entrepreneurs leverage the power of media and media features to grow their business. He is also my coach, my mentor, and a hell of a great guy, Mr. James Patrick. What is happening, bud?
Patrick, how you doing, buddy? Thanks
I'm
for having me
great,
on.
man. I appreciate you coming on, James. We were joking a little bit off camera, and it is the reality. Like, I'm sitting here because of you. Your inspiration and just your content and everything has led me to this point. So it's really awesome to have you on.
Well, I appreciate that immensely, but I will say, do not sell your own action short. Uh, You're sitting here because you chose to sit there. You chose to launch this project. You chose to get it off the ground. You chose to hit publish, and those are things. Those are steps that can really freeze so many. So the fact that you did that is truly worth commending and truly worth applauding.
Well, thank you, man. And honestly, I mean, the perseverance has been here. Um, because you've seen it. I mean, this is the multiple attempts on this podcast. But I'm excited that it finally caught. I didn't give up on it. I just kept trucking along and
Mhm.
finally got it to catch on. And I'm really excited with what content I'm turning out right now. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Um, our paths kind of were parallel in a sense. We both started out on the corporate side, kind of doing that
Mhm.
old school early 2000s journalism and marketing, which was that integrated marketing, I think was the buzzword back then. And we both, after time, just kind of went our own separate path. For people that aren't fully aware of your background and your story, can you catch up or the listeners real fast?
Yeah. So short story long. It's not. I don't know how interesting I consider it. I think what I could surmise as being unique about my story was the fact that every little thing I did, and I started in journalism. I had a sidestep in marketing, as you mentioned. I worked on the editorial side for a little bit. I taught for a while. Everything I did, I was kind of collecting these tokens of experience or of knowledge. And when it came to launching my own business as a photographer, all of a sudden I'm looking at, okay, well, I worked as a photo editor for newspapers and magazines. So I have a sense of what they are looking for when it comes to hiring a creative. So I can differentiate myself. Well, I worked in marketing for 7 years. So I have an idea of how to craft and communicate this brand. I worked in journalism throughout college. So I have an idea of how to curate narratives that can resonate with my target audience. I spend so much time teaching, so I'm comfortable getting in front of people and sharing so much of the experiences I've gone through. And I'm very fortunate, even though there were so many little, I won't call them detours, but so many little side quests that I had to go on before I launched my own business. But each one, I really feel equipped me with something that I was able to take into my own business.
Yeah, it's taking those lumps, right? I mean, perseverance. The 2 years of this entrepreneur life, that's kind of been that reoccurring theme that I keep finding myself in is like, okay, I took the lump, I took the L, let's just keep playing the game. Um, I think what was it? Michael Jordan said it best, I've failed over and over in my life, and that's why I succeed,
Hmm.
you know. Um, but now your photography is one of those exceptional parts of that skill set, right? Like, I mean, you over 500 covers. I mean, I don't know of many photographers who have that kind of a track record in reaching covers. And I mean, what is it about your success there that you think that resonates with other people?
This morning, I was thinking about a book I read like 10 years ago. And trust me, I'm answering your question. The book was it was either blogging in your underwear or ignore everyone. Both books were by the same author, this guy named Hugh McLeod, who was an artist, and he had this very simple concept of what he was trying to create, where every day he would sketch a cartoon on a plain index card. And he did this for, I don't know, 10 years, 20 years, probably 30 years now. And so he has thousands of these drawings, and some are funny, some are social commentary, some are doodles, whatever. But it was doing this over and over and over again. And he launched a blog where every day he would share it. And then he would start to sell poster prints of some of the more popular ones. And that helped him secure a book deal. So all this stuff starts to happen because he just committed to doing this thing. And in one of the books, he was hitting upon the fact that what he was doing was not necessarily unique. Drawing on an index card every day. He's not, changing the world by doing this. And it's easy to copy it. It's easy to replicate that. But if you were to try, you'd be about 10,000 editions behind him. You're going to have a lot of catching up to do. So when it came to my work as a photographer, I really tried to think about what's the thing that I can do where it would be hard to catch up to me with. And really early in my career, I leaned into the fact that I did work as a photo editor. I worked as a photo editor for a newspaper. That was my first job. I then worked as a photo editor for a magazine. When I worked in marketing, I had to hire photographers for corporate assets. So I had a lot of experience on the other side of the table, looking for photographers, reviewing portfolios, hiring photographers, negotiating the terms, selecting which imagery is going into a magazine, a newspaper layout, an ad campaign. So when it came to me launching my own career, I looked at it and says, well, I understand the other side of it. I know what they're looking for. Let me push very aggressively into providing images I know work. And that was my tagline within my business. I don't take photos. Anyone can take a photo. I make images that work.
Yeah.
And I pushed heavy into editorial work, which is magazine work, just because I had so much experience in that. And then, one cover turned to 20 covers, which turned to 30 covers, which turned to 100, 200, 300. I think we're over 600 now, probably closer
Oh,
to
wow.
700. But now I look at it, and that would be hard to compete with me on. You can
Oh,
try to shoot lots of covers, and you could do really well at it. I'm not saying you can't, but it'd be hard to match what I've curated. And what's important about this is I never really consider myself the most creative photographer. I never really believed I had innate talent in photography, but I am willing to work really hard at it, and I am willing to put in a lot of energy and emotion into what I'm doing, and I am willing to be proactive about going and curating work. Now, this is the other side of that coin. For an individual who's looking for press, this can be very impressive to them. And I am all of a sudden a likely candidate for whom they want to work with. If you are a magazine editor, it builds a lot of trust and validation within my brand because I have that experience. But if you are, oh, let's just say an influencer, and you have no interest in media whatsoever, my work means nothing. And that's what we have to remember is it's not for everyone. And it should not be for everyone. What I'm trying to create is not for everyone. It's about knowing who this work is for. So I'm communicating the right message to the right people. And I'm hoping somewhere in there I was able to answer your question.
no, you definitely did. And, I feel a similarity to that, where I spent so much time as a creative director inside sports designing, magazines and banners and advertisements and those kinds of things. I started from, I guess, the user side of photography, right? I know how to shoot a photo that needs ad space, that needs copy space, that needs that header for the
Mhm.
masthead. And I feel like that's really important. And honestly, I consider myself the same as you. I'm not the most artistic. I'm probably not the trendiest photographer, but I find myself, very technical, like very solid. I love, I love using a light meter, and I like getting light right, but I like those very fundamental executions, and I feel very similar to that. And that's kind of a segue into, how I found you. Back in 2018, I had a little extra cash and I'd gotten back into photography, and I was learning. I was in that learning mode where I was just gobbling up all the information I could. And I stumbled upon this little white paper on the internet called How It Was Lit by James Patrick. And I filled out a little email web form and I got my downloaded PDF, and I started replicating the lighting setups that were in there. And we were kind of laughing off stage. 2018, James. I mean, you have been a steady point of education and encouragement in my career for now the last 5, almost 6 years. And first of all, thank you. But I
Thank
mean,
you.
that's
That's
awesome. I mean, that's you kind of preach to us in the coaching group. We talk about lead magnets, or lead magnets and nurturing campaigns. And I mean,
mhm.
I'm a prime example of the success of that. What is it about lead magnets that you feel so strongly about? I mean, in your nurturing campaign, I mean, you nurtured me for free for 2 years.
Mhm.
We had one-on-one coaching sessions. You're amazing in your DMs. You respond to, I think, just about everybody. Um,
Mhm.
what is it about nurturing and lead magnets that is just so successful?
And this is such a good question because I feel it's going to be even more important this year than ever before. Uh, to zoom out, there are really three phases a prospective client has to go through in order to do business with you, and in those three phases, there's a multitude of steps. But let's simplify it. Three phases. First phase is they got to know you exist, right?
Right.
And that's so much of what I espouse in earned media, public speaking, contributing articles, getting involved in professional trade organizations. All this is to generate awareness. But just because someone knows who you are doesn't mean they like you, doesn't mean they want to do business with you. Hence the second phase, which is nurture. And I do believe this nurture phase will be more important now than it ever has been before. And the reason I believe it will be more important is one, there's so much competition. Two, lots of competition are pumping out lots of various benefits and values that are hard to compete with. Okay. And three, we're just overrun with information as consumers. And it's so easy to tune things out. So as a consumer, we have to really trust and love brands we invest in. I think the days of us investing in something just because there was a lot of money put behind an ad campaign doesn't work for us anymore. We want to believe in the brand we are investing in. And we need to believe that that brand, that product, that service is going to provide us the results that we need, because that's ultimately what we want as consumers. And I think as product sellers or service providers, we need to remember how we act as consumers. And I think we forget that. I think we get, if we create something, we get real excited, we want to put it out and like, I can't wait for people to buy this thing, whatever this thing is. And oftentimes we'll push it out and we're wondering why it's not creating sales, why it's not generating any traction or momentum. And the reason being is we are not treating our prospective clients like we ourselves would want to be treated as a prospective client. We, as a prospective client, want to be talked to. We want to be heard individually. We want a company to actually feel, or we want to feel like that company's actually investing in us before we ever choose to invest in them. And this is once again something that I can bring to the table in my business and within my career that can help me stand out against others. So if you have let's just say a photographer who they don't invest into nurturing their audience or into clients, the only time they're going to beat me in securing work is on skill sets alone. I mean, really, that would be it, or past relationships. But relationships kind of become null and void if you're not investing into it. That's the point.
Right.
Is a great relationship will surpass talent. A great relationship will surpass ability. A great relationship will surpass investments in advertising. It's relationships, and so this second phase of nurture, I look at. I want to not just become aware to my audience, but I want to keep their attention. And the only way I can keep their attention is by providing immense value to them, investing in them. That's what, I do it through my podcast. You popped into my live coaching session I did yesterday, blog articles, I mean, whatever it is, I can pump out into the ecosystem to provide value so that when they are ready to invest in someone who provides my service. And that's the other thing we have to remember. Clients only buy when they're ready to buy, not when we want them to buy. So we have to stay top of mind until they are ready to make that decision for whatever our product or service is. But if we've been investing into them and nurturing that relationship, by the time that our product or service is at the forefront of their mind, we are at the front of the line when it comes to who I want to work with. And I'm sure you've gotten this message, but this is the message that proves it all. When someone messages you, and I guarantee your listeners have gotten this in some way, shape, or form, and this says, I've been following your work for years. I would love the opportunity to work with you. That's it right there. Yeah. That's someone who's just signaled to you that they have appreciated the nurturing you've been giving them for X amount of time before they're ready to make a purchase.
And that makes the sale so much easier, right? Because there's really no selling. It's already done. They've already committed. So, and I think probably one of your pinnacle pieces of content would be your podcast, which is the Beyond the Image podcast, which I had to look it up the other day because I remember a few milestones. I remember the 200 milestone and I remember the 400 milestone, but you're now up to 459 episodes.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot of podcasts that have had that kind of longevity. When did you start the Beyond the Image podcast?
I actually think I started it also in 2018.
Okay.
So good story. Well, I think it's a good story. The podcast originally had a different direction and focus.
Yeah.
And the reason this comes to mind is the podcast was actually launched around the same time as the How It Was Lit freebie that I was giving out, because the podcast was originally directed for creatives. I was trying to build a brand new vertical in 2018 to market to creative professionals. And the podcast was built as a sidecar to that and as a nurturing tool to that. So at the time, I was actually running two podcasts. I had the Beyond the Image podcast, which I had just launched, and then I had another podcast connected to the conference I was running, Fiposium. And after, I want to say 40 episodes, somewhere around there, maybe 50, I realized that my topics were unanimous between the two shows. Like I was covering the same thing, and it was getting a little arduous to manage both shows. And then to make matters worse, the launch I was trying to do for marketing to creatives didn't work. At least it didn't work to the level I wanted it to work. So I had put forth all this time and energy into this thing that just didn't work. It happens. So I was like, all right, well, what of this can I salvage or pivot or shift around or really try to direct in a more successful venture? And what I chose to do is I chose to close my other podcast and put all my time and energy into the Beyond the Image podcast and move it past just targeting to creative professionals, but to anyone in the professional industry who's choosing to build, market, and profit from a brand. Once again, the conversations were synonymous with what I was talking on my other show anyway. So I just expanded the audience a little bit. And it's interesting because when I started doing that and really putting all this time and energy into this one show versus splitting my time and energy between two shows, that's when it really started to gain momentum. Um, but it really, I guess I'm kind of surprised by the number of how many we put out. It doesn't feel like that. Uh, but when I was journaling this morning, I came across this journaling prompt that was asking, "Who are you?" And most people, when they're asked that question, they give kind of a superfluous or kind of low hanging fruit answer. "Oh, I'm a photographer. I, I'm an Arizonan." I mean, it's just like, but that's not really what we're asking at the center, at the core. Who are you? And I think a lot of us have trouble defining that. I have trouble defining who I am.
Right.
So I was spending some time thinking about this, and I think as I was kind of meditating on this and peeling back layers, I realized, oh, I'm a teacher. Okay. That's really part of my DNA, and so much of what I do is I teach.
Yeah.
And that right there is, I think, why I've enjoyed doing the podcast so much, because it doesn't feel like, oh, I have to do another podcast, or oh crap, I gotta record a show. It's one of my favorite things I do, is to be in front of the microphone and to share some insights, and the benefit is when someone gets value from it and they signal back, hey, this resonated with me, or this meant something to me, or I was able to apply whatever it is that I was teaching. So
Yeah.
I think that's why it seemed to go as fast as it has.
Well, yeah, yeah, and it's not easy. I mean, the first two iterations of what I was trying to do here on this one, it didn't work, and I kept having to trying to figure out why it was so laborsome, and why it wasn't working, and I finally figured it out. It was because I was trying to do it on my own.
Mm,
And that's kind of the lesson I've learned in this round, which made it more fun, and more consistent to reproduce, right? Inviting friends like you, and I started realizing that I have a lot of great friends in my network that
mhm.
are skilled and knowledgeable about the topics that I love, and I want to share them with other people. It's funny, when you first started the conversation, I automatically put you as an educator in my mind, and I kind of tried to work through it a second for me, and I think I'm a connector.
Mm,
I've always
yeah.
been that kind of fixer guy, right? Like, oh, I've got this buddy, he can take care of that for you, or I'm a solution based person. I think deep down at my core, and I think that's why this is working out for me a little bit better this time. Um, so Fitposium, we kind of mentioned it now. Now it's the Get Published Live
Mhm.
conference, happening this coming May, and that's the you know I love the education. I love the community that I'm involved in with you, there. I get to meet a lot of great like-minded people across the nation, and I really enjoy all the Fitposium or Get Published Live content that comes out now. In that, you teach people how to get published, and I think it's a lost art. I think you and I kind of understand earned media, and you used to have gatekeepers, and my PR degree, I think I've written two press releases in my entire life. No more PR, press releases kind of are gone. Everything went to a blog post soon after I graduated. But talk to me a little bit about why it's still important for people to get published. I think people sometimes forget about the power of earned media.
Mhm. Really, this idea of building something and hoping people find it does not work. And anyone who's tried to build anything in the last 10 years has learned this lesson in a very hard way. It's like, why is my Instagram not growing? Why are people not finding my podcast? Why is my course not selling? I built a website. I have this thing that they call SEO, I think. Eh, I set up a Facebook page. This should just be working. And the truth is, no one's going to buy from you if they don't know who you are. So you got to get people to know who you are. And the only way to get people to know who you are is to go where they already are. We do not create an audience, we tap into an audience, and we tap into an audience with something that is interesting or relevant to them, that solves a problem for them or provides a clear benefit for them, and that gives them a reason to then follow us over back into our ecosystem. And one of the best ways I found to do this is earned media. Now when I say earned media or getting published, I want to expand the definition, because the first thing that's going to come to mind is getting published in a magazine. Yes, sure. Getting featured on a podcast, speaking on stage at a conference, being interviewed on a YouTube channel, speaking to a local community group, uh, giving a presentation in a private Facebook group. All of these are earned media. When I have my work posted on another company's social media account with the sole purpose of them tagging me, that is the same level of earned media as it is me landing a feature in a magazine. It is an audience, or excuse me, it is a platform or a media outlet who has an audience that I'm trying to tap into, showcasing who I am and what I do. And if there's enough value in that, a percentage of that audience is going to jump back into my ecosystem, right? And this is why we need to be tapping into this. So the answer of where I should be getting published or landing these earned media features is answering the question of, where's your audience?
Right.
What organizations are they a part of? What publications do they consume? What TV shows do they watch? What podcasts do they listen to? What groups are they a part of? What sites are they subscribed to? And if you know your audience, and you should know your audience, well, that question's easy to answer. You just make a list. And then you have to figure out, okay, how can I position myself to any one of these platforms or publications or channels so that I can be a guest or be a host or be featured or contribute or whatever it is. So yeah, I was doing this earlier this week for my marketing plan for this year. And so much of what I was writing out of where my audience is, believe it or not, was, yes, there were some publications in there, but a lot of it was private Facebook groups, special exclusive masterminds, community events, specific industry conferences, because I know that's where my audience is. So I want to be there. I want to speak at those events. I want to present to those groups. I want to be creating and offering value to whatever outlet that my groups are a part of. And this is, I had this VP back when I worked in marketing, and he's the one who taught me the idea of what I now see as omnipotent marketing, which is being everywhere where your prospective clients already are. And not just being there, but giving value, offering insights, information, entertainment, inspiration, whatever it is that they're getting something out of, so that you are earning their attention. That is such a critical asset, is to earn attention.
That's great. I mean, and you're so right. Gone the day is, you know, broadcast, TV, radio, those hard old school mediums. I think you're entirely right. I think there's so much value now in new media with
Mhm.
podcasting, and I've picked up a few, and I even call them features, I guess, still, because that language is ingrained
Mhm.
in me. I got a couple of features on some Instagram accounts here lately, and I thanked them for a feature because to me it was a feature.
Yeah.
Even just the repost was huge. And you're right. I think I've gained more back into my business, and those eyeballs from smaller accounts than I ever have a large account.
Mhm.
And I say large account to mean, radio or TV or anything like that. What do you think some of the top three reasons are that people aren't getting published?
So I would say the first is that they're just not pitching, or they're waiting for media to contact them. But I would say that's a big mistake. Is, well, I have to be a celebrity to land anything. I'm not big enough. I don't have a big enough following. I've never done anything impressive enough to earn media. So it must not be for me. That's a mistake, though. Earned media is for anyone who has something that they feel they can share. Period. So if, and put it this way, if you have a business, you have something that you already believe you can share because you've turned it into a business. Okay. So that qualifies you for media right there. Then it's just about coming up with the right hook or the right pitch or the right angle that is appealing to that specific media outlet. So that's the first thing, is they're just not pitching. Probably the second mistake I see is they send off a pitch. Maybe they email a magazine editor, or they DM a podcast host, or maybe they tag an Instagram account hoping that Instagram account will shout them out, and nothing happens. And then they assume falsely, well, the podcast host doesn't like me, the magazine editor hates my work, and this Instagram account thinks I'm a fraud, so they'll never share my work. All right. And then you stop. But if you stop and everyone else is continuing to email and to pitch and to call and to send materials out, they're the ones getting the features. It has nothing to do with luck. It has nothing to do with them having more credibility or them having more experience than you. The issue and the reality is that they just were persistent in their pitching. They were the ones who kept getting in front of the editor or the podcast host or whatever it is. So consistency and perseverance is what is required to land media features. I've had to pitch some media features for, I don't know, years before they even acknowledged that they were receiving my content. And to be clear, it's not that they hated all my content for the first X number of pitches. Maybe they never saw it, or maybe they saw it but they were too busy, or maybe they saw it but they already had a service provider, or maybe they saw it and they thought, well, I'll get back to this, or maybe they saw it and they didn't need to hire anyone in that moment, so they just flagged it to look at later. It doesn't matter. The point of the matter is that up until they are ready to make a decision to feature me or to have me on or whatever it is, I'm going to keep positioning myself and putting myself in front of them. And then the third thing I would say that could be holding people back from landing media features would be not honoring the relationship. Earned media is a two-way relationship. It is about developing a mutually beneficial working connection with someone else. So both parties have to benefit. Let's look at a magazine. A magazine features you. We understand how it benefits you. They're featuring you. The eyeballs and the readers of this publication are going to see who you are, what you do, and get a sense of why it matters in the context of their lives. But what does it do for the magazine? You have to be providing something of value to that publication. Take an Instagram account that you're looking to shout you out. You want them to shout you out because you want followers. You want to grow your audience. So it's very easy to understand what them shouting you out does for you. What do you do for them? Well, the content you're sending them better be really good to make their channel look great, because they are beholden to their subscribers or their followers. You want to be on my podcast? Fine. But what are you doing for my audience or for my listeners? Because that is who I am required to serve. And when you lead into pitching to media outlets, not like I got this pitch the other day, or technically my sister got it. She's the creative director of both of our magazines. And she sent it to me and she's like, hey, do we want to consider this guy for a feature? And I'm like, nah, just delete it. And she's like, are you sure? Or no, she responded back. She says, oh, do you want me to send it off to the editor first and then delete it? I was like, no, you can just delete it. You don't need to send it to our editor. And she's like, oh, do you know the guy and hate him? I'm like, no, I've never heard of the guy. Right. And she's like, well, why are you kind of being so cold with this? I'm like, because this is a terrible pitch. It was a terrible pitch. I actually wonder if I could find it real quick. The essence of the pitch was, I saw your magazine and I would love to be featured in your magazine. Let me know how I could be featured in your magazine. By the way, I have a really big audience. Okay, I found it. All right. My name is blank blank from the United States. I came across your publication via a friend. I survived cancer. I'm a master trainer, a 9-time fitness champion. I'm a writer. I'm a model with 35 plus magazines and 6 covers. I'm a Grammy nominated musician. I'm a father of 4. I have a great story as a cancer survivor and a natural pro fitness champion. I have over 1 million followers on Facebook, as if anyone uses Facebook anymore. I have 150,000 on Instagram, and I promote all magazines I am featured in. I also have lots of photos. I'm also a writer. I look forward to hearing back from you. Okay.
Right.
He sounds really impressive. And I'm not, to be clear, I do not want to belittle the fact that he survived something very, very intense.
Yeah.
The problem is not the story. What am I supposed to do with this?
Right.
How do I feature him? What am I supposed to do? I've never heard of this person before. So his million followers mean nothing to me. I don't even know if they're legitimate. When I hear a million followers and I've never heard of you, that's suspect. Either way, let's just give him the benefit of the doubt. Once again, you didn't pitch anything. There was no pitch in that. That was an email just to brag about yourself. I need to know what sort of feature you want. I need to know what the feature would be about. I need to know if you want to write an article, what is that article going to be about? I need to understand how your idea matches with my audience. When I get pitches for people to be on my podcast, for example, and I get about 1 to 2 a day, I almost never look to see who the person is because most of the time, like 99% of the time, I've never heard of them. So it doesn't matter who they are. So spending a bunch of time bragging about yourself doesn't do anything for me because I've never heard of you. So I don't care. Only thing I look for, what's the topic? What can they speak on? Yes. And it does that topic match my audience? And if it's a yes, I assume whoever they are, they know how to talk about it because they said they could talk about it. So who you are is not as important as what you can do for me as a podcast host, for me as the publisher, for a magazine editor, for an account you're pitching to, for a stage you want to speak on. What are you providing the readers or the audience members or the subscribers or the listeners? That is how a pitch stands out.
No, I think, and you're right too. And in building these pitch decks, I think it's changed over the last couple of years because I think you're right. I think followers, it used to be when I would develop a pitch deck for a client, we would look, we'd run those vanity numbers. And now I feel like those numbers have been so skewed over time because people thought, well, that's what they want. So I'm going to buy followers to build up my following,
Mhm.
and that's going to get me a feature. And then that didn't work, but it's great. It kind of goes back to earlier, it is the value. What value are you going to provide for the people? Not like you said, all intents and purposes, he's a very official sounding person. He's got great accreditation, but what value is he going to
Mhm.
give? And I think that's the tripping point, right? Um, what am I going to give? And everyone has something to offer. Everyone has something to give.
Yeah.
It's finding what your particular angle is and then leaning into that. And I think that's great. Um, and you kind of touched on it a little bit. One of the things that I always encourage clients when I first start working with them is I always push them towards the Fit Business Guide as kind of first
Oh,
and
thank you.
foremost. Yeah. Because I mean, you know, it helped me so much, you know, because it was such a broad, there's so much information when you're first getting started, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes it's overwhelming. And I thought the Fit Business Guide, your first best-selling book, did a great job of kind of bringing that all in and organizing it in a very straightforward manner of things that how you can approach it, because I think sometimes when, especially fitness entrepreneurs, they have a skill set in training, but they
Mhm.
don't necessarily have a skill set in marketing.
Yep.
And I think sometimes that can become overwhelming for them. But you recently just came out with a new book, The Legacy Planner, which I ordered mine yesterday, my hard copy.
Awesome. Thank you so
So
much,
yeah,
man.
yeah, man. Oh, well, I mean, I had the digital copy, but I needed that pen and paper. I needed some quiet
Yeah,
time. Oh,
it
yep.
is, yeah, I got mine right here. I do offer like a free PDF download as you mentioned, but like for me, having a tactile thing that I write in every single day is what keeps me focused on really my deliverables and how to stay on top of the work that I'm aggressively setting for myself.
Yeah, I found that on the iPad, there was just too many distractions. And in our coaching call yesterday, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to order the hard copy, and I'm just going to separate from technology and focus on my goals. Um, and I'm really excited for it to show up. Should be here tomorrow, I think. So,
Nice.
yep.
Awesome. Thanks, buddy.
But no, and I mean, and that just kind of gets back to that earlier point, right? You offer all of your books in digital form
Mhm.
for free.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we've given away Fit Business Guide for free.
Oh yeah.
And Fit Business Online, yeah, we include that anytime someone signs up on the website, they can get a free PDF or they could buy the hard copy workbook if they want. And then the Legacy Planner, yeah, we uploaded the PDF for free if anyone wants the free PDF because it, it it's it's 500 pages the PDF. Sorry, uh, I really shouldn't be killing so many trees, but you print out what you need from it, and
Yeah.
if you can get value from it, then all of a sudden you're going to notice these small incremental changes where
Mhm.
you're a little bit more focused, you're getting a little bit more done, you're getting a little bit more efficient in the work that you do. And if I could play that role for you, that's awesome. That really is awesome. And this book was the Legacy Planner. I spent a little over 10 years piecing this together. And to be clear, the first 8 of those years was just me doing it myself, and it started with this Excel spreadsheet where I would have, the first portion of the book, which is the annual, quarterly, and monthly components of it, and building out my annual plans, my annual visions, breaking those into quarterlies, breaking those into monthlies. And for my weeklies and dailies, I would literally just draw it out in a journal. Like, and so every day I was sketching out a journal for myself, which took a lot of time, sketching out all the lines for my agenda and my action items and my habits. And because I'm so obsessive compulsive, like I used a ruler every day and I had to make it look super neat. So I was spending too much time. Says, I should just put this into a PDF. So then it turned into a PDF that I was just using myself, and I would just print out week at a time to write out my weekly plans and my action items that I had to get done. And then we decided, you know what? Because I was giving it to my clients who were asking how they can organize their work and be a little bit more productive. So we're just sending it out like, hey, you can use this thing. And then I was like, well, hell, why don't we just put this in a book? So we did that in at the beginning of last year, 2022, and we special released it only to a small percentage of our audience, as a beta round, and just had them test it for most of the year. And then we just got all that feedback on what worked and what didn't work for them. So now I had this data pool of how it works beyond just working for me. Cause like I said, the first 10 years it was just for me. And it was like, all right, well, let's take all their notes and let's incorporate. And that's when we were able to publicly launch it. What was it, a couple weeks ago? So it's been really cool to see people get it and to see people filling out their goals and their plans.
I love the habit tracker. That's one of
Mm, hmm.
my key pieces. Because I love, you leave it up to us to determine what eating healthy is. So,
Yep.
I make my own rules. It feels good to check that one off. So I appreciate it,
I,
man.
you know, I, we should be making our own rules when it comes to our habits. The habit tracker, I categorized it. I have categories of health, mindset, relationships, and personal or professional growth. Those are the 4 areas, but you can set your own metrics, and you should be setting your own metrics because how I value the focus on my mindset is going to be different from anyone else. And what I need to do to keep myself on track is going to be unique to me. And someone should be able to say, for my mindset goals, I want to read every day. Or for my relationship goals, I want to tell my wife I love her every day. Or for my health goals, I just want to go for a 10-minute walk every day. They should be unique to you. The reason for the categories, though, is after interviewing so many different people through my podcast and through my book, I realized these 4 categories: health, mindset, relationships, and personal and professional development or growth were the 4 categories that every person I ever talked to honored in their lives and helped dictate the path that they were on. So it was important that those categories were in there, but the nuances of the categories, that gets to be unique and individual to each person.
Well, it is extremely helpful. And I would encourage all of y'all to go out and sign up for it. If not, just go to Amazon and buy it. But James, I want to greatly appreciate you for being on, man. This has been awesome, and I love getting to share you with all of my listeners and my friends out there. Because, like I said, you've given me so much value over the last 5 to 6 years, and I want to share that with everyone else. So
Well, that means so much. It has been an absolute pleasure to be able to work with you, but honestly, to have your friendship and to be able to collaborate on amazing things like this, it is truly amazing. I am sincerely proud of you
thank you, man.
for the launch of your show, and I am so excited to see where this is able to take you.
Thanks, man. I greatly appreciate it. Well, let everyone know where they can find you. We've already talked about the Beyond the Image podcast. What is your web address and your Instagram so everyone can find you there?
JamesPatrick.com. And if you want a free copy of the Legacy Planner, JamesPatrick.com/legacy, and you can download that free copy, or it has the links to the Amazon version on Instagram at JPatrickPhoto.
And we'll put all that in the show notes below. But James, thank you very much, my friend. And hopefully I will talk to you and see you again soon.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Head.